Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack. And today we're doing the full-on Next Men Legends independent comic book crossover, and it'll be done in Byrne style. That means that in this issue you will have to look to find the crossovers, right? There will be shots of characters that will be there'll be actual walk-ons. So that's one of the things you have to remember. You see a Byrne crossover, it just depends on if it works within the story he's telling, right? So we have Sandy, who's babylicious right now. She somehow brought this comic book character, Dr. Trog, I think it's Budala, Action Max. Forget who this guy is. Mandriller, and I forget her. These are the comic characters that are brought into the present day, and we'll start to see them as we go along, right? So right here we got Sandy. If you remember, Sandy, well, this is going to be the key to the plan that Satanus, if you were sticking along with this, Satanus and Hilltop were doing. That this sex act between Sandy and Danny has now made a change in her, and she's totally shifted, right? She's totally babylicious now, and she's still at odds of how this happened. To have this growth spurt happen and everything change on her actual face, everything has changed, right? Right, and he says it here, my face has even changed, right? It's got to be some coincidence, right? So when we left, they had left, we saw the Next Men in the last storyline, of my favorite storyline of theirs. They kind of, dang, it's raining really hard. Sorry, guys. So I'm going to have to be louder than the rain, right? So they met Hellboy and they escaped and ran into Sandy, who took them in. He was one of the boys that was down in the sewers. I don't think he stays with them for that long. But then we have Thomas Kirkland, who I think I talked to you about when I did my 2112 thing. I didn't go through the issue. But now we get to see what happened in the actual future that's in there, right? And he talks about the mutate wars. And we find out the person we know who's evil, Aldous Hilltop, is going to become president for life. He's going to be connected with the person he tried to set up also. So it's like all these questions are coming about. Are the Next Men actually going to be a problem? Because all this actually seemingly does some good, but then the mutates are coming out of the woodwork, and we know that all this is the reason for the mutates, right? So this one giving you an overview of how the future happened. Got this sort of Cyclops, they're trying to deal with it. The United Nations is destroyed, and then Satanus reveals himself in 2025. That's coming up soon, you guys. So Satanus is going to reveal himself. The Next Men was always about a couple of years or 10 years in the future from us. We're finally catching up to it, right? So, and then they were on, Apollyon. And this is having the Saracana moment. She's the Saracana. She's helped. Janie has helped out Thomas Kirkland, and he's going here to, which I believe they're set to try to stop the Next Men, right? But at the same time, Yeah, the Next Men are kind of all over the place. Bethany, who can't use makeup, is now almost porcelain. Nathan's glasses had some sort of spy things on it, and he takes that off. And then they have a moment where he realizes that he didn't do anything to hurt her because he slept with Jazz. There's so much storylines going on in here. But at the same time, they connect back again, right? This is She-Demon, right? This Mandriller, and this is the first time they actually fight some supervillains, right? And she's invulnerable, but doesn't add to your strength, right? And her, of course, being invulnerable, her hair is invulnerable, so it's like touching knives. It's almost sharp, right? Because it's so thin and indestructible, but then they just disappear, right? And we have a line to Sandy. So that's kind of a thing to say what's going on here, right? And she wakes up. He said, I had a dream, but I wasn't controlling them. Someone else was. And that's clearly Dr. Trog. And he's got this comic book guy. The comic book guy has no fat chicks shirt on there. And he's able to control her dreams, right? And now his big plan is to meet his maker, Ben Horowitz, right? So they decide, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do our own comic books. So it's kind of a Stan and a Roy type of relationship, where it's a person that keeping Ben going, right? Or more like Ralph Macchio. I'm not sure I don't know who his assistant would be. But anyway, right? So he goes, sees the doctor, saying it's all these changes. Her spine, her spinal column has corrected itself. So much stuff, right? And he said, might have caught some sort of super virus. And he's like, oh, there might be something to that. So I jumped the gun, right? So as of right now, they took the M4 story and they put it into the Next Men. So you know that this story connects with the Next Men. We saw Amanda early, right? So we know that her storyline dovetails in to the Next Men story and whatever's going to happen with them, right? So while Van Damme is sleeping, Mark and Ivy can take control. He can help them get them free because they were going to freeze on this mountaintop, get to a helicopter. They're off. Of course, 2 seconds after, they barely make it out, right? So these reporters, they come and they tell them the truth of what happens. That the Next Men were government agents, right? And then we have Tony, who's been out of commissions. He's Professor Xavier of the Next Men, or better say, she's she's a lot tougher than Heather Hudson. So from Alpha Flight. So she's going to see Dunklements because if you remember from a long time ago, Willis Dunklements, he had Jasmine abort her child. And this hurts Tony to no end because she can't have any children, and being she had a botched abortion. She can't have any kids. And she's like, why? She's totally upset. She's going to destroy him. She's on the fence about what's going on with Control, but she still kind of trusts them. But she finds out Dunklements is working with the enemy, right? Aldous Hilltop, his first appearance here. And this is legendary Next Men's letter page. I already said probably every time we talk, Bendis had a letter in here. And this is the black and white version, right? So, how are we at? 10 minutes in, right? So I guess we're not doing too bad. I just got this poster, and I have another Next Men poster, which is really cool, by painted by Gary Cody, right? So this Byrne is going to the Marvel offices with part of Legend. It's another crossover with real people. You got Mignola, you got Arthur Adams and Byrne going in there because Mignola's mad that Hellboy has been utilized in this in Dollar Comics, but at the same time, and George Perez also was talking with Byrne to do a Dollar Comics special issue, right? And even though Mignola would do some crossovers, some of them he didn't want to do. I don't think he wanted to do Painkiller Jane after he did it. He was okay with doing the Savage Dragon. He liked how that came out, right? But Dr. Trog is there, right? So he beats up Mignola, knocks down Arthur Adams. Then Byrne, of course, he gets tossed, right? To call Cretan. And he's got the fat guy with him. He says, no calls. And he's there. He wants to talk to his maker, right? And then we're talking about what's going on since they had sex. And he's being kind of standoffish. And he's like, oh, you're jealous of my relationship with Garrison. It's like, no, there's nothing between us. And now she realizes that she's a little hard on him, so of course he's going to be kind of closed off from her, right? And this is where they realize that the trigger gene is passed on, right? And this is the ultimate plan of Satanus and Hilltop, that through regular, like turning sex into something they call dance and not telling them about pregnancy, they would go about it with no thought. And then at the same time, they would trigger people through sex and they would come this. Now here's your first big crossover. Byrne became close with Paul Chadwick, so Paul Chadwick, who created Concrete, said, do whatever you want with Concrete. And then he said, well, I'll probably, have him act out a character. He said, yeah, whatever you want to do. So Concrete comes to his world and he beats the hell out of these guys, right? And Byrne said, it's a lot harder to draw than I thought, right? And then you see Concrete disappear. That's the full-on crossover, right? There's gonna be some others that are gonna be. You have to put your magnifying glass out, right? And then he has one question: why? To be or not to be? Point, right? So we're back to Carolyn and Amanda, and they crash after being hit. So we got to see what happens to them in the next issue, I think. All right. And M4. Right, so it goes to the history of it. Why couldn't you allow says, why would you make this character go through so much to become a villain? How by mistake he killed the woman he loved, and that would drive him to become a villain. It's an interesting thing for a supervillain, how he became that and then became someone just got defeated again and again, right? And he wants him to rewrite the story so he would be the winner. And so you would exactly what I say. Okay, so this is the point I wanted to get to, right? So after all this, the doctor who was brought in to help Satanus pass on, right? And they had to get rid of the body. And they open up the remains and they take him out. So we know Satanus is dead and there's not much else we can do, right? He's one of the coolest villains in the story, and now we lost him. So this is the sad day. It's like, well, what? There's so many moments. Come on. There's so many moments in here where we're not sure where, right? So then we're not sure. Should I keep reading? Since we lost Satanus, he didn't get to fight the next one, right? So go in there. They're trying to find Sandy, but they can't find her. They're saying she's gone. But then they got all these superheroes. There's Action Max is there, and we got that through that one a little quicker, right? Hopefully this is only a half, right? I'm supposed to do this, right? See the line work. So this is the crazy one, right? So we have Monkeyman and O'Brien. We can see this take being used in the new She-Hulk, where Hulk is the Monkeyman, the smart, the brains, and we have the woman who turns into a babe, and O'Brien, right? And they're not sure where they're at, right? But we know, right? And then we also have them versus, what's the name? Oh my goodness. I think I'm gonna screw this up, aren't I? I forget. This sucks. It's from Warp Graphics. Isn't it Warp Graphics? ElfQuest. Yep. So here they got ElfQuest. Byrne is I think he was close with the ElfQuest writer, so they let him take their characters. We had this cool sort of face-off between, I think this is Cutter and Monkeyman, right? And Skywise, the ElfQuest characters have the greatest names, and it's really a shame that they didn't become an animated thing. But I guess someone had to buy it off from them, and so they can't make any money after this. But yeah, right. So they're trying to figure out where Sandy is. They make it there, but she has no shoes, and the person sees it, but she uses her power to kind of take him out. All this is going on, and this is the best part of the Next Men, the reunions, right? They're happy to see Danny, right? So it's Mark. And Carolyn is dead, right? So Mark is going to take her away somewhere safe, right? So back in the government office, we find out Jasmine's last name is DeSoto. He finds out that the baby was not triggered. There was nothing wrong with the baby. And then, Garrison said he was going straight back to his apartment, but he didn't, right? So this is going to be a threat, right? Garrison's here. He's meeting up with some other girl. I guess his and it's like she didn't know anything about this guy, and I mean, Sandy didn't know anything about this guy, right? So we don't know where he found this girl from, right? It was cheap makeup, right? And Sandy said, I turned myself into this screen girl and he's cheating on me. He said, turn yourself. What? It's like, what's going on? So now we find out it's not Trog. It's actually Sandy. Right? And he's coming to meet the person who brought him in there, but the heroes are here too. And it's because it's all from Sandy. She's bringing all of these characters to life. Right? We have this big showdown between the Action Max characters. Right? And then her invulnerability is there, but it's a little too much for her to take. And they're breaking out. But the army's here, and the army's ready to take out the next one. And of course, Action Max helps them out. Things are just, everything's going on at once. Right? But it's not important to the story. The important part is what's going on with the Next Men. So they got to get out of town, and they come up with an interesting way of how to get off down the building. And he narrowly escape. And then Sandy comes home and sees her brother, has her shaped head, and says, I'm in big trouble. All right. Then we come into the last thing. The cover kind of hints to what happens. Sandy's back to normal here. So we don't know how that happens and how it ends for Sandy. Right? So we got Sandy. He's like, you sound like my sister, but I don't really think like her. Right? And at the same time, when she came here for help, but at the same time, the power is just too all-consuming. Right? She tosses her brother out of the window, and then she decides that she's not gonna let anyone exploit her. And then see, we got Marv and Wendy having an appearance in the Next Men, right? That is like, we need to see the full on, but I guess he got a draw of appearance in Next Men 17. So, all right, so we keep going. So now they know everything's going to mess, right? And they said all this happened because they had sex, right? And this could turn, and they have to make sure that it can't happen again. It's like, what do you mean? So we like to make sure it's not cumulative, right? Right, and he's trying to state his case. It was the right thing to abort the fetus, and Tony is like, no, wrong. Beats the hell out of control, but he decides not to kill him. What he meant to her, but he like realizes how bad he is at this point, right? And they see Sandy's brother, right? And with all this going on, They heard all the noise. They see something none of us see, right? So as they have time to hide out, we see Amanda a little more composed than she normally is. So she's going to saying, we're going to do just what Van Damme planned, right? And that sounds crazy. He's going to become president of the world, but it does hint at what's going on in the earlier scene, right? She has mental powers going to the max. So this is kind of the dark Sandy story. And she's just blowing things out of the water. Just doing terrible things to New York City. But at the same time, and this is the coolest shot ever, find out that Sandy's actually here. This version of her is actually like the comic book characters. It's like an avatar of hers, right? And then as the heroes of Dollar Comics see her, she destroys them too. But they were actually at kind of ground zero. And this awakened Sandy, right? She tortures Nathan and gives Bethany pain so she can feel. And then Sandy comes, and the creature can't affect Sandy. She's putting you back in your box, Pandora. All of her dark thoughts compose, and then they're letting her out without even knowing that I was doing it. Now you're gone. And she says, make everything as it was. But she leaves herself to fall to almost to her death. And that's where Byrne started putting the covers in the books, right? We saw Trog Space. We had the cover moment in the books. And I think that's one of the key things to Marvel, that they would have something close to the cover in the book. Where DC was kind of like, we'll give you the cover, but the cover doesn't mean it's the actual story, right? So, we did it. We got to almost the last storyline of the Next Men, and this is the line art that led to the painting. So that was a fun sort of arc for the Next Men, much more action-packed than we've seen. Well, some of the legend characters and possibly the ElfQuest characters might have been a legend thing, but they had their own publishing company. And yeah, we got through another arc of the Next Men, one more major one to go, and then we have the return. So we'll give you a true assessment of the return after reading the initial 31 issues of it, which is its own story, like its own novel of the Next Men, right? So I guess I should do that soon because it's almost done. Then we can get to the return and give you a true review of that, right? So yeah, this was rolling at this point. Like, it was really rolling. It was a lot of fun. There was less worry of what Byrne could do since he had no sort of no restraints in here. At some point, you just have to trust that he was right, and he knows what to do with these characters. Even though characters that you grow to love would wind up on a stretcher, right? So I guess that's it. Spinner Rack is out.